Ed, I grew up watching Nora Ephron and Nancy Myers and these romantic comedies that really romanticize romance. And it wasn't until I saw the Brothers McMullen and Sidewalks in New York and Purple Violets where I was like, oh wait, this is real relationships. And that's really what you portray. What is it that inspires you to create these real family and relationship dynamics on screen?
It's funny you mentioned Nora and Nancy because I love their films, and I was lucky enough to work with Nancy once. And I've always been sort of attracted to, let's say, character-driven pieces with romance. But what I've tried to do, I guess, with my romantic dramas or dramedies is just kind of have them steeped a little bit more in the real world. Um, of course, like a movie like Family McMullen, I tried to lean into the humor a little bit more than, let's say, some of those other films that you mentioned. And I definitely wanted to kind of lean into the more mainstream, bigger rom-com stuff, while also, though, making sure that they all felt like real people and those were real situations.
Right.
So I guess I don't know really, other than it's your personal aesthetic. I know like musicians will talk about like owning your tone. And I think I kind of found my tone. And, fortunately, I've had the lucky enough to work with a lot of these actors a number of times before, Connie included. And, Connie and I have a great collaboration. And there are moments where Connie will just say, Eddie, I'm not sure about this moment here. Can we think about it that way? And that started from the very first draft of the script all the way through our last day of shooting.
Wow. So Connie, stepping into the shoes of Molly again, what was that like? And obviously, with Ed as an acting partner, but also as a director. And have you guys you've worked together multiple times. So what was that like?
It was like no time had passed. It was actually so amazing. I feel like I could hear her voice in my head like immediately. Like I know it so well. And there was there the shooting the Brothers McMullen was life-changing for me. That was my big break. I know it was for Eddie too. I mean, truly and completely. And there's something that was so formative about the experience of that will never go away. So stepping back onto the set together, stepping back into this character and working with Eddie, it's like in my bones. And also I just feel so much gratitude to have the opportunity to do it. Um, because without that first movie, we're not here today. You know what I mean? Like we don't have the careers that we have today. So yeah, there's something that just is always going to feel like home.
And there's so many ties, obviously, from the Brothers McMullen with the varieties of finding love and the new chapter, and then the VO narratives and the house. That's the house. So when did Barry and Patrick and everybody come calling back to you, Ed?
So it's funny. 14, 15 years ago, I see Rick Linklater's second sequel to Before Sunrise, Before Midnight. And Before Sunrise was at Sundance with us back in '95. And I thought, oh, I never even thought to do a McMullen sequel. But after seeing his film, I was like, why don't I do this? And it was coming up on the 20th anniversary. So I thought, perfect timing. I tried to write a script and I just couldn't figure out what to do with those characters. And it wasn't until 5 years later that I read an article about, 20 somethings 20 somethings being forced to kind of move back home because of like the shortage of affordable housing, and then moving back home to live with their parents in order to save money to buy their first house. And I was like, okay, that's my way into the sequel. It'll be Barry's kids in their 20s are forced to move back in with him. And once I had that, I was like, all right, well, since we made the film, Connie has become, such a big star, and Connie and I have remained really good friends and worked together a bunch of times. So I was like, well, Connie's got to be one of the leads in the movie. So that's when I was like, well, I'll make her a widow. So it'll be the brothers McMullen and the sister-in-law McMullen now.
Hmm.
So I started fleshing it out, called Connie. I said, what do you think? Of this idea, would you be into it? She said, absolutely, get to writing. And, 5 years later, for the 30th anniversary, here we are.
And you have Mike and Seamus Egan did the composing again.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're also friends still.
yeah. No, it was great. And that's why, like, just, the first scene that we shot with me, Connie, and Mike in the kitchen doing the turkey before everyone comes in, it was a little surreal for us all to be back together. And it's really, like, it's as if no time had passed. Who knows, I don't even know how to explain why.
Well, it's perfectly done. I want to ask you guys something about, kind of the evolution, or I don't know if it's the evolution of the film industry, but Connie, you've produced a number of projects over the years, and Ed, you've worked write, direct, acting, everything. And you've seen from 1994 to today how the film industry has changed, how making movies has changed, investing. So what is your advice for filmmakers today? Because Ed, you're doing what everybody wants to do, which is make your own stuff, star in it, boom. So what's your advice?
It's funny. A lot of people talk about what's happening in the movie business now that, theatrical is dying and that the business is just getting smaller and there are fewer opportunities. But I think Connie could speak to the fact, like when we were trying to break into the business in New York in the early 90s, we got in 95, but we started shooting that film in 93. The business was tiny. You had Miramax and Fine Line as your indie distributors. Searchlight wasn't anything yet. HBO wasn't doing original content at that time. So, maybe you would write a 1 hour drama for NBC or a sitcom or make a big studio movie. So, the business today is arguably bigger than it was when we got in. We were just fortunate that over the last 30 years, it kind of got massive and there was a lot of work around for everybody, which was just a blessing for all of us who love to do this. But I would say it's never easy. It's always been hard. If you absolutely love it and you just need to do this thing, then you got to jump in and just keep grinding and keep working and know, your career is just a series of ups and downs.
Mhm.
I've had periods where I couldn't get a film financed for years and you just got to go make another low budget movie again and hope you get into a festival and get some notice again. And Connie's made two of those micro budget movies with me in between these. And that's the journey.
And I would just add to that, I mean, for actors, but actually for anybody who's interested in filmmaking or in television, like just keep telling stories. Like it's so important. And I think the way the world is changing right now, and especially with AI, whatever, I think sometimes we feel like, oh, there's no value to that anymore, but there is. And the more that actors or filmmakers recognize that telling honest stories about what they know, knowing what their own voice is and what they have to contribute in that way will always have value. And you just have to, we actually need it. Like all of us need it. So keep going.
I agree. Well, thank you both. It's a perfect sequel. I think it's
Oh,
wonderful.
great.
Uh,
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. It's an honor.